morning, Park County and the surrounding area. This is Martin Kimmett. I'm here with my co-host Bob Ruckman. We want to know this morning what you guys are thinking about out there in Montana on that political scene. Let us know by logging into our Facebook page, Ring the Bell in Park County, or you can email us at rtbnow at Zoho, that's Z080.com. We are a bunch of private individuals who have pooled our resources to bring you this program. We believe in three basic principles: God before country, personal responsibility, and the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let us open a dialogue with you. What are your concerns? What keeps you up at night? Are you willing to raise your voice, your dollar, your vote? This is so important, especially at this time where we're starting this election cycle. As we always do, we're going to open with a prayer. And so if you'll bow your heads and pray along with me. Dear Lord, as we start this day, this gorgeous day here in Park County, we want to thank you for this day. We want to thank you that we live in this great country. We pray that you guide our leaders, dear Lord, that they do your will and that they follow the great laws of this great country. Especially at this time of year where we start the Lenten season and we prepare ourselves for your Son's resurrection. We thank you for that great gift. It was really a tough one. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And then we always start with our Bible reading. It's 2 Chronicles 7:14. It's from the King James Version, and this is how it goes. If my people, which are called by his name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sins, and will heal their land. And this land needs some healing, and we sure pray for that. Today we're going to be talking about the middle class and what you can do as far as our government goes to rectify the problems that we have, recognize the problems, and rectify the problems. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bob for a minute.
Yeah, the big thing is what has caused the demise of the middle class, and then what can each of us do to help with that problem. And the big problems that have had a major negative impact on the middle class are taxation and regulation. This is a big topic. It entails an awful lot of information, and it really also comes down to personal responsibility and self-governance in our republic, which is now behaving more like a democracy. We would know that we were given a republic form of government. It came down to a true story. A lady asked Benjamin Franklin after the founders had finalized everything with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. She asked him, what form of government, what have you given us? And he said, a republic, man, if you can keep it. And it really gets down to what's the difference between a democracy and a republic. On television today, on radio today, all you hear is, we're a democracy. We're a democracy. And it's also my fear that that's what's being taught in schools today is, well, we're a democracy. And our form of government is really a republic. And we can get down to a lot of basic definitions of what a republic is and what a democracy is. And I'm going to go into the democracy first, since that's the one that you hear the most and we're being indoctrinated the most. A democracy comes down to voting, and it's majority rules. When you have the ability to vote and your democracy comes down to, let's say, 100 people, and 100 people vote 51 to 49 to raise taxes, well, then your taxes are going to be raised. If they vote 51 to 49 to take your children, they can take your children. This sounds extreme, but that's how democracies have always worked. If you go back to Rome, Rome was founded under the rule of law, and they did well until they started having lots of prosperity. They had no taxes, businesses flourished. Rome was a phenomenal place. They did lots of building. When they started giving everything away, then it started coming down to votes, and the Senate realized, hey, we can get more and more votes. We can get elected if we give more. So they gave bread, they gave wine, they gave the games, they built the Colosseum. The more they did this, the more they had to tax. The more the taxes came, businesses went out of business, and pretty soon Rome fell. And that's where we're at today. Now, under a republic form of government really, in my opinion, comes down to it is the rule of law. We all have a set of laws that we're going to follow. And these laws can be changed, but it has to be done with a well thought out a paradigm. And the founders made it pretty difficult to change, for example, the Bill of Rights. You have to go through and get a very large number of states. I'm not sure what the number is off the top of my head this morning, but you have to get a large number of states to agree to change or add to the Bill of Rights. And so the process is there to protect people, to protect their property, to protect their lives, to protect their liberties. So let's look at this again as far as and whenever the majority votes for a candidate, they promise the most benefits. The result is that every single democracy in the history of the world has failed. And it's always due to a loose fiscal policy. And today it really matters because we're at a point where only about 51% of Americans actually work and pay taxes. The rest are taking through government programs and being given by politicians. And basically those politicians are buying the vote. When people are given everything, it destroys your self-esteem and it destroys our culture. One thing I've learned is when you're working, there comes down to a sense of self-worth. But if people just give you everything, pretty soon laziness sets in, your sense of self-worth isn't there, and it's almost like a drug. I want more and more and more. And unfortunately, that's not going to work well. It doesn't bode well for our country. And government can only give what it takes in taxes. Think about that again. I'm going to repeat that. Government can only give what it takes in taxes. And our country has incurred massive debt, and our state has incurred huge debt. This is a massive negative impact on the middle class, which is diminishing. About 75% of the jobs that are created, middle class jobs, and the middle class today is considered to be anybody that makes $15 an hour or above, and probably up to about $25 an hour. And this is up for debate. I can go to 15 different publications, and they're all going to list a little bit different. But it seems like this is about the consensus. So $15 to $20 an hour is the middle class, which means $30,000 to $40,000 per person is the middle class range in the United States today. When you have massive debt and you take out of that $15 to $20 an hour a huge percentage, that diminishes your ability to provide for your family and to provide for yourself in the future. And Martin, what do you think the national debt is today?
Well, the national debt today is $18 trillion, Bob, and the responsibility lies with government, and it lies with both sides of the aisle. We've got a Republican-controlled Congress. We've got a Democrat in the White House, but the White House can't do anything unless the Congress lets them, and so we can say that we can lay our blame on whatever party we want to, but it lies in both places, and ultimately I would say it lies with the voters, because they have to be informed. They have to know what's going on. They're the ones that elect the people that spend the money. Look at Wyoming. We think Wyoming's in such great shape, but there's $10 billion in debt. That's over $17,000 per person. That's why right here in Cody, in Powell, in the Bighorn Basin, we have to become aware of what is going on. We have to know what those people are spending money on. We have to rein them in.
I've talked with a number of people about this because this number startled me when we were going through and doing some research on it. Especially if you look at it from the middle class. And again, let's say we'll just pick a number for the sake of conversation, $30,000 a year. The debt in Wyoming at $10 billion is $17,265 per person.
Think about it, Bob. Think about it out there, you guys listening.
I mean, we got to pay for that somehow.
Yes, we do.
And the unfunded state pension liabilities are $1.7 billion. That's $3,100 per person in Wyoming. And I mean, that's man, woman, and child. We're not just talking about working people here. So you've got another $3,100 just for unfunded pensions. And that's ballooning. I know that a lot of state legislators and city council people have been talking about this, because that paints a pretty bleak picture. Somehow we're going to have to pay for that. And that typically means what?
The middle class picks up the tab, and you're going to have to pay for government. That's just a given. You get things from government, but we have to watch the waste, and we have to remember that the middle class is a huge voting bloc, and if they are informed, they'll know which way to vote. Those people are spending your money, ladies and gentlemen. Watch how they're spending it.
And start asking questions.
Ask questions. Yep.
Okay.
You've got to keep these people accountable.
We're coming up on a little break here, and we'll be right back. Okay, this gets down to, we've kind of painted a bleak picture here, but there's a real easy solution. For those listeners that are out there that are thinking this through, you're probably saying, wow, all this negative information. There's a real simple solution here. Just say no. The drug problem and the education program that was put in by law enforcement was really a great program. The Just Say No program, it was very effective. in the school system. I think it's time now to use that same paradigm in the middle class, and for people that have not registered to vote. It's time for you to stand up, get in there, register. It doesn't take much to do, and just say no. I mean, it's a pretty easy thing. I'd like to talk to you for a second, Martin. How do we compare to surrounding states? You know, we've painted kind of a picture here of where we're at. How do we stand with surrounding states?
Well, everybody comes to Wyoming. They think we have such a great tax structure, and hopefully we do, but perhaps it's getting out of control. When you look at our neighboring states, we're spending a higher percentage on. They're spending a lot of their money on education, on health and infrastructure. But in Wyoming, and this goes back to taking care of those voters so you get those votes, we're spending 30 to 45% more money than our neighboring states, depending on which one you go, Montana, Colorado, Idaho. We're spending 30 to 45% higher than our neighboring states on social programs and bureaucratic entities. Bureaucracy is run amok. And like you say, that middle class, they have to get out there. They got to say no. They're the voters. They're the biggest block. They have to say no to those legislatures reining these bureaucrats, or we're going to be broke. That's just it.
It's true, and we have to ask the question: what do we believe, and how do we help the middle class, which is me, you, Griffin here in the radio station? How do you help us? Because we need to help our children and our grandchildren. I have more concerns for my kids and my grandkids than I do about myself.
Sure, because we're older, and we've weathered some bad times. But this situation is getting worse, and the way we're gonna do this, we're gonna have to do research, and you can go to our website. We'll post different links where you can do the research and see how these people are voting. It's amazing how I call legislatures quite often, and they all call themselves conservative. But Bob, I can tell you I'm 10 feet tall. Just because I tell you I'm 10 feet tall, I'm still going to be 6 feet tall. It's not going to change that. That's a fact. So,
or if you're 5'10" and you want to be 6 foot,
well,
it's not going to happen either.
Let's not get out the measuring tape. But and ask questions. Ask questions to your neighbors. How do they vote? And just ask it to your legislators. There's good and there's bad out there. And this brings to mind a biblical reading. It's Matthew 3:12, and it goes, "He is ready to separate the chaff from the wheat with his winnowing fork. Then he will clean up the threshing area, gathering wheat into his barn and burning the chaff with never-ending fire." And maybe it's time to get out the winnowing fork and go through these legislatures and start thrashing and see where the chaff and where the wheat really is.
And we're not talking about a literal fire here. Maybe it's just time to fire them.
There you go. Yeah, we can get back into that firing thing. You bet. Yeah.
And we're going to post a lot of this research, the numbers, and where we've received that research. It'll be on Facebook page, Ring the Bell in Park County. That's Ring the Bell in Park County on Facebook. Or you can email us at rtbnow@zoho.com. That's rtbnow@zoho.com.
Yeah, that emailing us and looking on that Facebook page, that's so important, because we don't know what you're thinking, ladies and gentlemen, unless you let us know. We don't have all the answers, and we don't have all the questions, and we give it to you, so you ask the questions, and we'll help you find the answers. We'll tell you where you can find the answers. that's our mission right here is to do that. And Park County and surrounding area, we'd just love to help you.
And we're giving information not to paint a bleak picture, but once you're informed about an issue, it should normally prompt you to take action. And that's what we're looking for is we want people to take action.
That's right. And taking action, I've always said that a lot of people talk about the problems, but they don't look for the solutions. And when you take action, you're looking for solutions, and that's how you get better.
That's right. On the federal level, there's a great website where you can follow. It's nonpartisan. It has nothing to do with the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, independent parties. All it does is list every single legislator, senator, and representative, and how to contact them. It gives a little brief bio information about them, and then it lists the bills that they're sponsoring, co-sponsoring, and that they're supporting and how they vote. And that's opencongress.org. That's opencongress.org.
Yeah, and let's remind them that will be posted on our website. Correct,
Absolutely,
Bob?
absolutely. Because that gives you a review of the bills, and that's where your research has to start to get involved, to be able to make a difference and help bring this country back and to save the diminishing middle class.
That's right. The diminishing middle class will save itself. Nobody else can save it. We
That's
know
right.
the government's not going to be able to save it. So save yourself. Get out there, get informed, and vote.
And then on your state and local, we need to corral them when you see them. Don't be obnoxious, but be a little bit informed. Pick one bill and say, how are you going to vote on this bill? Pin them down. Don't let them vacillate. If they haven't researched it, that's fine. Ask them, well, when are you going to finish reading it? And I want you to get back to me. And that means a phone call or a face-to-face, because too many emails are just, well, I hear your concern, and I'm going to do this, and thank you very much for contacting me.
And one thing I might add, get the Constitution and read it, and then read it again. Know what your rights are. That is the republic. That is the law that makes us a republic.
Absolutely.
In our opening statement, we said we're a republic and we're governed by laws. That is the law. Those are your rights, ladies and gentlemen. Read the Constitution. Through that document has served us for over 200 years. 1.1 million people have died to preserve that document. It's our duty to preserve that document.
And interestingly enough, of all the countries in the world, we're the only one that hasn't undergone massive internal strife. We haven't had, we've been
just
blessed.
In our lifetime, Bob.
Right. In our lifetime, I read a report the other day that 60 nations have had coups, internal revolutions, conflicts, military things where tens of millions of people have been killed. And we've been blessed to have not had that happen. And that helps the middle class.
That's right.
When we're stable like that makes it a better situation. Right now, and there's something that comes in here is we have to start taking personal responsibility, each and every one of us. And that also means to help your relatives, help your friends, help people that you don't even know. Offer a helping hand. When you see somebody struggling, give them a hand. I'll never forget, I was down and I was $2 short down at Blair's. And a gentleman standing behind me, the bill wasn't very much. It was less than $20. He just handed the cashier $20 and he said, "I've got that."
Yeah.
Well, I had part of it. I was astounded, and he wouldn't even give me his name.
Well, that's what makes this country great. The generosity. The government will give you a handout. You can give your neighbor a hand up.
Yes.
and you give him a hand up, and I don't care if you can't do it monetarily, you do it with encouragement. You tell them how wonderful they are. You tell them that there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's how you do it. You give them knowledge. You just that give them that hand up, Bob.
And I've got a little saying here that I think really makes a poignant point. Each player must accept the cards of life that deals to him or to her. But once they are in the hand, he or she alone must decide how to play the cards in order to win the game. Voltaire actually said that. And that's pretty appropriate. We don't always like the cards that we're dealt, but we don't really have a choice. So we've got to decide what are we going to do with the cards that we have dealt to us. And that means for the middle class, we don't always like being where we're at. We need to look for jobs, find a new job. If you can't make it, you can pick yourself up.
Yes,
and,
you can.
And if you have to, work two jobs for a while.
I hope and pray that the jobs are out there. I'm sure that they are, if you're willing to work for it. And don't let the government discourage you from working. Don't let the government tell you that I can take care of you better than you can take care of yourself. That is the demise of the middle class right there.
Yeah, you look at government taxation and the rules and regulations. And this is where, in my opinion, our governor and our state legislators have really let us down, the middle class.
If you've ever tried to work through bureaucracy and the regulations, it's absolutely astounding. It makes you just want to quit, but don't quit. Change the system. Don't give up.
The EPA, just what happened down at Riverton, without any real authority, without any constitutional background, came in and decided they wanted to take the city of Riverton and all the outlying areas, acquire it through basically EPA eminent domain, and then give it back to the Indian tribes. There's no doubt that America has done a poor job with the Indian tribes. I'm not ever going to debate that because it's true.
Yes,
but on the flip side, that is what it is, and the EPA is not the organization that has any authority to do that. The governor could have just stepped in instead of hiring all of his crony politicians, could have stepped in and said, I'm going to implement the 10th Amendment.
There you go, back to the knowledge of the Constitution.
State sovereignty.
State sovereignty. You know that Constitution. You've got so many rights. Our schools haven't been teaching the Constitution for years, I don't think. And when we were in school, we did. So, but if you're ignorant, you're easier to control. And if you don't know your rights, then they can tell you what your rights are, and they can't do that. You've got a document out there that guarantees those rights.
I had a governor, Brian Sandoval, and he gave up a federal judicial position, which is an appointment for life, to step down and run for governor. And I was meeting with him with about 8 people, and we were talking about the various issues of, impacting that state. And he said, I asked him, do you believe in the 10th Amendment? He said, oh, absolutely. I believe that the 10th Amendment gives us the state's rights. And, he went into his little legal thing, and I sat there for a second, and I said, Brian, I hate to embarrass you in front of this group of men, but I said, states don't have rights. States have sovereignty under the 10th Amendment, and the states give the rights to the federal government. And he sat there for 15 or 20 seconds, which is a huge amount of time. And he looked at me and he looked at the group and he said, I apologize. He said, Bob is right. He said, we get caught up in this states' rights issue. And he said, states are sovereign entities and they don't have to do what the federal government tells them to do. But they've just rolled over.
That's right.
And that is leading to the decimation of the middle class. The rules and regulations from the EPA, oh my goodness, you can't drill, you can't frack, you can't mine.
You can't run water here, you can't run water there. We're going to control all your water. I'll tell you what, Bob, there's been a heck of a lot more people killed over water than whiskey in this state.
Oh, yeah. I have a good friend that's got a little pond. It doesn't run anywhere. He put it there for his own ducks and geese that are tame, and now it's become kind of a little habitat thing. And he's talking about draining it because he's afraid that the EPA is going to come in and tell him, okay, now that's a navigable water, and it runs off someplace, and now you have to leave it there forever and ever. And he's like, wait a minute, I built that out of the goodness of my heart. And he's just a middle-class guy. He was trying to improve things. So now he's going to have to spend a couple $1,000s out of his income. So you figure he makes, $40,000 a year. He's going to take $2,000 out of it because he's afraid of what the EPA is going to do.
And to me, that's part of the demise of the middle class right there. Goes back to regulations, goes back to taxation.
Absolutely does.
Sure does.
Let's go back to how we compare to these other states, on education. I believe Wyoming spends about $6 billion a year. I'm not sure of the number, but compared to Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Montana, we spend quite a bit on education, but it's considerably less than the rest of them. And we spend on all these superfluous programs that lead us into this debt situation, and the middle class is really going to pay. And now the state is faced with, a budget crisis, and I'm afraid they're going to come down with more taxes to offset this.
Well, Bob, that's always their answer. Their answer isn't, like you said at the beginning of the program, just say no. Their answer is to raise taxes. It's the old Andy. We really don't have an income problem. We got a spending problem. That's simple. Simply put, that's the way it is.
Isn't it easy to spend other people's money?
Heck, sometimes it's easy to spend our own, but we can spend ourselves right into a problem. The middle class knows that, so we've got to just take care of that checkbook, whether it be our checkbook or somebody else's.
This is something I'd like to see on a proactive basis from the listeners. Is when I was in high school, we had a basic bookkeeping class, and you learn some accounting and you learn some of those things to learn how to balance a checkbook. And
hold that thought, Bob. We'll go to a break and then we'll just explore that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, Bob, we're back, and you were talking a little bit about education. Let's explore that a little bit more, and then we'll carry on.
The education thing. I see a lot of young people today that get themselves in trouble, and I notice, and I'm being in the banking industry for so long, if you go to any university campus, there's going to be, when the kids come in to sign up for their classes, get their class schedules, there's 3 days there when they go through everything, there will always be 2 or 3 banks, large banks, pushing credit cards for 18-year-olds, because the banks don't really care what the credit score is because they don't have a credit score. They want to give them a credit card with a $500, $1,000 balance, and it's usually the criteria is based on what degree they're going into.
So what are you telling me, Bob, that what we have to do is learn physical responsibility early in life in the high schools. If we can, let's teach them that. At least teach them how it works. We can't dictate to how they're going to spend their money because this is a free nation. Let them know how it works. Let them know that they can spend themselves into debt. And is that kind of where you're going
Absolutely.
with
The math side of that is so critical. I can't tell you how many young people that want a car and they don't realize that when they buy that car on credit, they are foregoing future income because you aren't going to get that loan for free. And that's kind of like the state government. When they spend, they want that new car,
this? That's right.
that new program, then they're going to come down to using debt, and that's mortgaging the future.
That's right. Maybe we need to send those people back to school.
A little nasty fact here is that Wyoming today has a tax of $3,748 per person. That's the basic taxation rate. So that's your property taxes, your gasoline taxes, your fees when you go in to get a marriage license. I mean, every little tax and fee in the state of Wyoming is $3,748 per person.
That's right, Bob. And I grew up in Montana, and we all think that Montana, we're a lot better off here in Wyoming than they are in Montana. But in Montana, that figure's only $2,600. You're looking at a difference of $1,150
Per person.
Per person, right? Differential, and those people tell us how wonderful it is, but we have to stay tuned in. We have to be dialed in every second. Just get to our website. Park County, you can do this. We can't do it for you. Park County, you can do it. You can inform yourselves. You can get on our website. You can get on other websites. I'm sure you're a heck of a lot better on a computer than I am, and get informed. We came into the Bar J Wranglers last night. And we stopped at Walgreens because my wife wanted to grab something, and the gal, this little gal that was sitting there checking us out, somehow we got to talking a little bit about politics, and it was so refreshing. She was going to turn 18 before the election. She was so excited that she got to vote. If we could instill that in every 17 going on 18-year-old young person in Park County and get them informed, we're brilliant people here in Park County. That is our salvation. We can sit here and talk gloom and doom all day. The salvation is out there through God and through our young people. Our young people are a gift from God, and they're our salvation. And it just does your heart good when you see something like that. You know that it can happen, and it will happen.
I hear from a lot of young people, they're starting to understand this, and we're going to make it easy for those of you that are listening. Is you go to our Facebook page and you send an email to rtbnow@zoho.net .com, and we will have these websites where we pull these numbers down so that you aren't going to have to take the 4 hours to collate all this information. It's going to be right there. You can pull it up. It can go right to it. When you hear a legislator say, "Oh, that tax is not correct," well, that comes from a very, very reputable state that lists the various categories of every single state in the United States. So it's a good benchmark. Then we also went to the budget of Park County and started looking at some of the numbers there, and boy, that gets really startling. But let's go back to this, the tax per person for a second.
Sure.
Well, how does Colorado stand up?
Well, like I said, Montana, it's only $2,600 per person. Colorado's even less than that, 21 per person. So our neighboring states are just doing a lot better than we are. Wyoming citizens are paying 44% in taxes more than the surrounding states. And we don't even have an income tax, Bob. And all these other surrounding states do. You just and you look at the pick up the paper. You can read it right here in your PAL paper, your Cody paper. They're talking about raising that Park County sales tax another percent. That's another percent may not sound that much, going from 4 to 5, but that's a 25% increase
At one time.
That's one time. Now, how many of those middle class people out here in Park County get a 25% increase in their wages? Are you going to get a 25% increase in your wages? Put it in perspective.
We didn't even get the 3% cost of living adjustment in Social Security this year.
That's right.
You know.
So,
and this is a marketing game, because when you go to buy gasoline, it says $2.49. So you'll say, "Oh, it's $2.40," but it's $2.49.9.
right.
They don't say $2.50. You know, they always lifted it. It's $1.99.9.
That's right.
You know, so it's a marketing ploy when they say it's only 1%.
Smoke and mirrors.
Absolutely. It's not just 1%. It's a 25% increase in the sales tax.
Yeah. They don't say that. They don't say that when they write their articles, though.
They sure don't.
And that's why we have to be aware.
That's huge to the middle class. And I'll use this as an example. There was a gentleman 2 years ago, runs a farm, and he needed chemical and couldn't get it here in town. So he decided to run up to Billings to get it. It was one pickup load. And this is not one of the tax exempt things that the farmers get. He bought $40,000 worth of chemical in one pickup. Well, on 4%, that's $1,600. You add another 1%, that's $400. So he went to Billings, saved $1,600. They stayed in a hotel, and his wife did. Had a nice dinner, spent $300. That's $1,300 net. Now, he admitted that if he could have bought it local, he would have. And it was really a time-dependent issue. But the issue here is how many people say, I'm going to support the 1% sales tax increase. But then they turn around and drive to Billings. And they go to Costco and they go to Sam's Club. You know, I mean, let's start being honest here about where we're at, because we need to know and understand the issues and start voting our fiscal principles. And I'm talking about the diminishing middle class fiscal principles, because it really is. We're diminishing now. And, you know, the middle class is buoying itself up today by borrowing.
That's right. And that's not going to last forever. The government can't do it, and I can't do it. The middle class can't do it. You can't do it. We have to have the different answer. And to me, the different answer is in that voting booth. But just speaking about voting, Bob, like I said earlier, there's been a lot of people that have died to give us that right to vote. And my father, who is probably my greatest hero, was an aircraft commander on a B-29. He grew up on a small farm in northern Montana. He only had an 8th grade education. You talk about middle class, that's probably the bottom of the middle class right there. And he went on, he worked hard, went through flight school, and he flew 30 missions over Japan. He was on the first raid over Tokyo in the B-29s. His responsibility to that crew was very great. His responsibility to this nation was very great. And I'll guarantee he probably prayed from takeoff to landing. God was his co pilot. And God should be our co pilot.
Absolutely. And that gets down to the legislators and the county commissioners and the governor and the mayors and the school board members and the school boards and these unelected boards. Money is like a drug. The more you have, the more you'll want. And the more you want and the more you have, the more you'll spend. And I have a good verse from Proverbs 13:11. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. It seems to me that we're at a time where we need to stop taxation, stop attacking and destroying the middle class. And if we need something, let's start putting contingency funds aside. Instead of always just saying we need more money to spend, let's start putting money away. And that starts right at the city level, at the county level. So if you know that a bridge needs to be repaired, that you should have been saving for 30 years after you built that bridge, and then you can fix it. And that kind of gets down to how do we get this to happen? And that gets down to the voting side of things. And Martin, give me some information here on the Wyoming people from 2012 as far as registering to vote and eligibility and those type of things.
We're just not standing up. We're just not standing up to the plate on that. The people here in Park County that were eligible to register, there was 433,000.
I think that's the state.
Oh, in the state. Okay, and then only 60% of them actually registered, and the people that that voted was only 108. 50% vote year in and year out. 50% of the people are dictating what the 100% of the people get, and we got to remember that. So you want a voice, get out there and vote. Raise that number from 50% to 100%. Then you can go to your legislature. Then you have your own destiny in your hands.
Absolutely, and I think that's just startling and scary. There was an election one time, a long time ago, where a small little county was voting for a very contentious race, and there was 5,000 people. So in 1700, 5,000 people is a lot of people.
Bet me it is.
100% voted. 100% of that area, that township, voted in that election.
There's countries in this world where it's mandatory to vote, and I hate to dictate things like that, but I think it's a pretty good idea. They have to vote, or they have to have a real good reason that they don't. I've been in those countries on election day.
I've had a theory in my head that'll really raise some eyebrows, that I truly believe this, that you shouldn't be able to get a marriage license, and you shouldn't be able to register your car, and you shouldn't be able to do any of those things until you register and vote. So every year when you go to get your license for your car, you have to show that you at least voted, registered and voted, or you can't register your car and your driver's license is deactivated. I think we'd have 100% voting then, because everybody wants their car.
Everybody likes those wheels.
And I'm being a little facetious there.
Absolutely.
But we need to have people start being involved and get rid of the apathy. In county level, we had eligible to register 22,000 people in Park County. only 13,419 registered. And of that, only 6,941 voted. So a little over half of the people that were registered voted. But that's only a third of the people in the county that could register.
That's
So
right.
you have a third of the people, 31%.
And those people that use the argument, my vote doesn't count, you look at those numbers, your vote does count.
Absolutely. You're letting a minority of people that do register and vote dictate to you.
2 or 3 votes could change the whole outcome, Bob.
You
So your
know,
vote counts.
and this is a statement that was a long time ago, probably about 140 years. And it came down, and this is where the concept of Marxism was developed. The best slave is one who thinks he's free. How many people in this country believe they're free? But the reality is, when you're mortgaging your entire life at the kind of levels that we do, and we are, you're not free.
Well, we're free, but you have to remember, freedom can be a very fleeting gift if we don't work for it.
There's indentured slavery. If you don't vote, in my opinion, you're a slave of a sort.
Well, sure you are, because you're not taking care of your own destiny. You're letting somebody else make the decisions.
Absolutely.
Anytime you let somebody else make the decisions, you're a slave.
I think we're coming up on a break,
Okay.
and then we'll come back. No?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening today. Next week, we're going to talk about property rights and land issues in Wyoming. But please, if you have any questions, get on that website. Ask us your questions. Let us know what your concerns are, and we'll help you any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you.